I want to have you pick your favorite selection from each position. I know that's not easy because you like a lot of the picks. And then after each one of your picks, I want to hit a couple of the themes as we veer off down the different ways that that position group presented us in terms of stories as the draft played out. So we're going to
Sure.
start with wide receiver. 37 taken, Chris. Since the draft was reduced to 7 rounds, we've never seen more than 37 receivers taken in one single year. You got a lot to pick from. Which pick was your favorite?
Yeah, there's a lot to pick from. And just, full transparency, I tried to stay away in a lot of the cases from the top guys. Like, yeah, no crap. I like CD Lamb to the Dallas Cowboys. I liked Henry Ruggs to the Oakland Raiders, certainly. But I'm looking for a little bit of like guys that I thought were off the beaten path and didn't just get as much credit through the process as they thought, and maybe the value of where they're picked too. So the one that comes right off the bat to me is Pittsburgh with Chase Claypool. That in the second round, we both know we're huge fans of Chase Claypool. I think he's got a chance to be Vincent Jackson, Brandon Marshall, that type of talent. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have a keen eye for recruiting and figuring out value type wide receivers throughout, Kevin Colbert's history. So that to me is one that really jumps out. Probably my favorite one. For him to go, what was that? Pick 17 in the second round. I think right off the bat, he's going to be the number 2 receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers and really have a chance, I think, is talented enough to be that go-to guy and maybe even challenge a Juju Smith-Schuster to be the number 1 receiver for Big Ben.
And one of the major storylines, Chris, maybe the storyline coming into the draft when you broke it down into each position group, the wide receivers and how many might go in the first 3 rounds because of how deep the talent pool was. 17 went in the first 3. So I've got some team-oriented themes. I want to go down those roads with wide receivers. But because there were so many and because it was such a big story heading into the draft, is there another second or third round guy you want to point out before we move into some teams?
The first pick of the second round, I want to hit on T. Higgins. I thought that was a phenomenal pick by the Cincinnati Bengals. T. Higgins, he's still young. He's raw. I think he's going to continue to grow and get stronger. I mean, if you look at him, and I mean this by no disrespect, he's got a little bit of a baby face on him. Again, we got to remember, these guys are 20 and 21 years old. You're not a full-grown man yet at that age, especially a lot of athletes who have been growing so much since like 7th and 8th grade on. They're really just starting to fill out now. But to me, it made a lot of sense. One, let's get a young guy with our young quarterback and start that bond right now, and you might be able to get a special connection. And then when you have A.J. Green and Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon at running back, now you got like a nice mix of, I got this Plaxico Burress type receiver over here with my incredibly accurate quarterback who's amazing at throwing 50-50 balls or back shoulder balls to these type of players. I just thought not only was I a big fan of T. Higgins and what he is and what he can be, but I thought it fit well with the way Joe Burrow plays the quarterback position too, and it's something to build on. So I love that pick too.
One of the things I like about talking about the draft with you the last couple of years, you kind of see it like me. You're much more likely to be positive than negative. You want to see the glass is half full. And I feel the same way. I want to be excited about these picks and what these teams do. And I hear that in your voice as well. But we go back to Friday, and we both felt the same way about the Green Bay Packers selecting Jordan Love in the first round, quarterback to maybe someday take over for Aaron Rodgers, when they could have gone with running back, tight end, receiver to help him more, to help that team more right now. And we put a cap on that discussion by saying, let's back off for a moment and say a strength of this draft is how deep the wide receiver class is. Maybe we feel differently about what the Packers do come Monday. Maybe they give Aaron Rodgers some more weapons. And here we are. They still haven't taken a wide receiver.
No, it's Monday, and I feel worse about it because I went, damn, they had 2 extra days to get a receiver. They had 6 more rounds to do something. I'm bothered by their draft. I don't know. There's no other way to say that. Really, listen, I like A.J. Dillon. He's another guy that you and I got to see in person this year when Notre Dame played Boston College. Yes, is there some value to him? Certainly. But, man, did the run game need to be addressed? I thought the run game was one of the positive things. Certainly could get better. I understand that. And you need a 1-2 punch. But I'm amazed that we didn't address wide receiver or pass catchers for Aaron Rodgers. Oh, don't worry, Aaron. You just keep carrying the team. No problem. And, again, I'll say the same thing that I said on Friday about the defense, too. It's almost like, all right, so here's two things. It's almost like the Packers are like, oh, we were in the Final Four. We're only a player away. No. Bullshit. You're not a player away. You're never a player away. And if you're staying the same, you're getting worse. And they didn't do a whole lot of free agency, okay? We talked about last week how teams ran the ball, the good offenses ran the ball on them at will. That bothers me. Okay, you never address that. You don't have a bad taste in your mouth about the way the 49ers could have ran for 500 yards in that game if they wanted. I mean, they just took their foot off the gas pedal because it was an ass whooping. Yeah,
2 games.
so right. Two games,
Two
right?
games, yeah.
So I don't understand it. And this is the question I pose to you, Paul. Do you think they draft Jordan Love, let alone trade up and give up other assets to go get a guy that's not going to do anything for their team for at least the next 3 years? Do you think that happens if there's an owner in the building in Green Bay? That's the thing that keeps coming back to my head.
I haven't thought about it that way. I mean, maybe that would have been the grown-up in the room to say, hey, you know what, guys? Jordan Love is a nice, 2024, that might look great out there at Lambeau Field. But what about the team that made it all the way to the NFC Championship and was clearly not on the same field, literally, figuratively, however you want to say it, with the San Francisco 49ers? And
right.
That's the issue that wasn't addressed.
Well, yes, that's the issue that was not addressed. And, I just feel like Green Bay, even though, yes, I know they were 13-3 and things were good, I also want to remind them, man, if it weren't for Aaron Rodgers, you're going to be a 10-6 or 9-7 team. I mean, we can go through a number of games where I just go, if Aaron Rodgers is in your quarterback, you don't win the game. I don't care what you say. They don't beat the Bears in week 1 unless it's Aaron Rodgers. They don't get off to the lead against the Dallas Cowboys and some of the amazing plays he made down there early in that game to win that. The Lions game, which was, I believe, a Monday night game, no way they win that without Aaron Rodgers. Chiefs was Aaron Rodgers' magic show, making like unbelievable rabbit out of his ass type throws in that football game. And then, of course, the playoff game. They're not in the NFC Championship game if it isn't for Aaron Rodgers just making throws where we go, man, there's only 2 or 3 other guys in the league that could do that. So that's where it bothers me. I like Aaron Rodgers, but I also am just bothered by the thought process of the Green Bay Packers in general, even without the Aaron Rodgers subject.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. On Friday, it was almost like a knee-jerk anger, and now 3 days later, it's more of a subdued, I can't believe that actually happened. I can't believe that team didn't get better at that position. There were some teams, and I'm looking at the AFC West, that made it a priority and went and accelerated after wide receivers. In the AFC West, those teams chasing the Kansas City Chiefs went after it. How do you feel about the Broncos going receiver in the first and the second round?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Again, I think we would both agree the Broncos have a serious talent on defense. I mean, Vic Fangio is one of the best minds in the game. You got Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, Jarrell Casey, a bunch of other kind of role player defensive linemen that are very good, that are kind of coming up the ranks, whether that be Shelby Harris or they got a kid from Ohio State they drafted a few years back who's a contributor. But, hey, Justin Simmons, one of the best safeties of the game, A.J. Bouye, Bradley Roby still there. So the defense is real. The thing was, okay, yeah, you got Noah Fant and Cortland Sutton. What else are we going to do? And they go out and get Jerry Jeudy, who can do it all and is really NFL ready, game ready right now, route runner, along with KJ Hamler. I mean, holy weaponry in Denver. I mean, Denver decided to just go, not just we're going to improve the offense, but damn, we're going to get like some real artillery here and be in the conversation for one of the most explosive offenses in football. And I think that's really cool.
And you also have the Raiders took 3 wide receivers in the first 3 rounds. And the Chargers, it didn't get as much attention. However, 4 of their 6 picks were used on offensive skill positions. Clearly, those 3 other teams in the AFC West are chasing the offense and trying to keep up on the scoreboard with the Chiefs.
Well, yeah, I think there's something to that. And I think 2 of them, to what we said too, with like the Broncos and the Chargers, they really got their defense in place, right? So I think offense was a true area of need. I don't know if it was necessarily like, hey, let's just go out. Let's try to win shootouts against, Patrick Mahomes and company. I don't know if that's really realistic to even think that. But regardless, I think all three teams realize they're going to have to put more of an offensive output, because no matter how good your defense is, just like we saw in the Super Bowl, we saw a really awesome defense, and it just takes Mahomes and company to get, a little hot, and they can throw up 21 points in a hurry. So your offense at some point is going to have to answer those bells if you're playing against Kansas City all the time. You can't always just go, oh, we're the Chargers, our defense will get us through. Oh, Vic Fangio and the Broncos defense will get us through. No, I think, that maybe 50% of the time the defense can keep it at a manageable level, but I think you're going to go other games where Denver, you're going to be like, hey, Drew Lock, you're going to have to score 34 today. Hey, Justin Herbert or Derek Carr, we're going to have to score 30-something to win this game. They're hot today. They're going. So I understand the thought process, and, I thought the AFC West had a good draft just in general.
That's exactly the way it played out in December between the Chiefs and Broncos. I don't know the exact score, but the Broncos held the Chiefs well under their average, somewhere in the mid-20s, and all they had to score was a field goal. They didn't score a touchdown, they being the Denver Broncos, the entire game. So that's not going to get it done. And the way they prioritized the early rounds really reflects that feeling. Let's move into the offensive line. 6 offensive tackles in round 1, only 1 in round 2. Not as many as expected interior offensive linemen drafted. Same drill that we did for wide receivers. Your favorite selection on the offensive line?
Okay. I mean, I'm in love with those first 3 offensive linemen off the board. I really am. And I wanted to give, like, the Jets and Mekhi Becton the title holder here, because I really like what Joe Douglas did. But I think ultimately, and, I don't like to talk about these high picks all the time, but pick number 10 with Jedrick Wills, Alabama, to the Cleveland Browns. 1 is my favorite pick because that was my favorite tackle in the draft. But 2, Paul, I think you and I are on the same page. Like, you brought it up with the Tennessee Titans on Friday. There was a plan. There's something about this is going to be our identity. They got Jack Conklin in free agency. They got a J.C. Treader and a Joel Bentonio inside to be great interior offensive linemen. They needed another tackle to help Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry and Nick Chubb and Baker Mayfield. So to me, they went from having like, whoa, it's a good offensive line with Jack Conklin being signed, to now it's like, whoa, this offensive line, we better watch out for this. Let's put a little star next to the Cleveland Browns offensive line, because when all said and done, they might be in that conversation for one of the 5 best offensive lines of the game.
I like what the Saints did, too. I think they were the first team to go interior offensive line with Ruiz later in that first round. Not a sexy pick, but one that helps Drew Brees, for however much longer he's there, do what he does in the pocket.
Definitely, Paul. I mean, and again, make sure your strength stays your strength, right? The 49ers got Javon Kinlaw because they lost to Forrest Buckner, but we know the defensive line was the reason they got to the Super Bowl. The Saints, with some of their success, Paul, and it's a good call by you. I mean, their offensive line the last 3 years is, without question, one of the 5 best offensive lines in the game. I mean, they're amazing with Andrus Peat and Ramczyk and, Armstead at left tackle. And now you get a center like Ruiz who can play center or guard, whatever you need to do here at first. I think ultimately he's really made for center. But I thought that was a really good pick, too.
I like the way you put it, too, because the 2 things that come to mind with draft philosophy, the ones we've heard for years and years, fill a need or take the best player available. Well, how about keeping a strength, just as you said it? And I think more and more when I look at picks, I go to that, and I applaud it home when I see teams do that, just like the Saints did there at 24 by going interior offensive line. Okay, we're warmed up now. We've got wide receivers. We've got offensive line off the board. Quarterbacks. We've got quarterbacks. 13 were selected. I'm ready to hear about any one of them that you count as your favorite pick.
Well, I love Joe Burrow. Hey, of course. I mean, I don't want to be Captain Obvious. We know we love that. We're going to have plenty of time to talk about him. Justin Herbert, I got a man crush on him too. I think the ones that jump out to me, the first one would be James Morgan, the Jets pick in the 4th round. That would probably be the guy that I liked a lot. Okay?
That's a bit of a surprise. So we need some details here. Details on how he got your attention.
Yes. Well, he was I had my top 5 quarterbacks, right? Where I had Tua number 3, Jordan Love 4. I had Eason from Washington 5. You see, he slipped in the draft, and the off the field reports on Jacob Eason are not flattering at all.
Right.
But that's really the biggest reason. I looked at James Morgan. To me, was that next group down of guys where I went, this guy has a chance. Again, I'm not into like mid-round and late-round picks where, oh, he's going to be good in the quarterback room. He'll know the playbook. Oh, he'll be able to He'll be able to break the huddle. Whoa, that's great. But then, like, when you actually are getting paid to play or do something, he stinks or he's average. Morgan has a chance to be something, Paul. There is like a big-time arm here. And the Jets have a backup need. They have David Fales there, and I wouldn't trust that. Morgan has a chance to be one of those guys where, yes, a good backup, but also one of those guys 3-4 years from now we go, hey, maybe James Morgan's a starting quarterback in the NFL. And that's where I like that pick at the quarterback position.
And I'm federally mandated to ask you about the 53rd overall pick. I'm also very curious to hear what you think about the Eagles in round 2 selecting Jalen Hurts.
Well, listen, I like a lot about Jalen Hurts. When people just talk about him, as a quarterback, I want to go, no, he's not a first or second round pick if you're just going to play him at the quarterback position. And this is not about the quarterback position for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they picked this guy for, yes, hopefully he can be our backup quarterback in 2 years, right? They got Nate Sudfeld right now. I think if Carson Wentz got hurt in week 3, Nate Sudfeld will be the guy that comes in. But they're going to use Jalen Hurts, in a Taysom Hill capacity. I think you're going to see him moved around, a slot receiver. He might line up to Carson Wentz as a running back in the backfield on some plays. Hey, here's a toss sweep, go. Here's a toss sweep. Now, don't run it. Throw a ball down the field. This is Doug Peterson, who we know is very creative and willing to think outside the box. He came from Andy Reid. So, I understand it that way. But I don't think this is any threat at the quarterback position by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
Carson Wentz is borderline one of the 5 best in the sport. Jalen Hurts is a developmental prospect of the sport with added incentive of being a weapon for the offense.
You don't like him as a quarterback to come in and have a chance to beat out Carson Wentz. I don't either. But think about it this way, just as a second-round pick, late in the second round, to make your offense more difficult to defend, do you like the pick?
Nah.
Sort of?
I don't love it. It's sort of. I would have rather say, let's draft another receiver. I mean, they talked about Carson Wentz and giving him weapons. And I know they took Jalen Reagor in the first round, which, it's consensus. Nobody would have picked him at 21 except the Eagles. And he ran a slower 3-cone in 5.10.5 than I did. So I don't love that, all right? That to me is scary to take a guy like that at 21, let alone he's not a big guy either. So, yeah, I think there were some guys on the board still, that could have been had and certainly helped out that Philadelphia Eagle offense. But, again, I'm not going to be too critical. They have a plan usually in Philadelphia. They know what they're doing. Wasn't my favorite draft from Howie Roseman and company, but nonetheless, I know they're smart and it's well thought out.
Quickly, just because it's also a big name and he got a lot of attention over the weekend, Jake Fromm, round 5. What do you think?
Well, Jake Fromm is the perfect example of a guy that's been built up by, it's, one of my favorite sayings, qualifying statements by unqualified people. It's like the sideline reporter in a game was telling us when Jake Fromm was going to be drafted back in October. Like, I didn't know that sideline reporter was such a great draft eval and expert, So we've been fed that for like 5 months. And we're in this notion again in this country with football right now where if the team's good, the quarterback must be good, right? The quarterback's got to be one of the best in the Georgia. They don't ever lose. So the quarterback's, he's a winner. He's got to be amazing, I just hate that crap. He's a career backup. That's what he is. He's got a below average arm. He's a below average athlete. The accuracy is about average. So, again, we have to just get out of this mold of, oh my gosh, this team was good, so the quarterback must have been good too. No. Gino Torretta was nothing special. He was good in college and won the Heisman because his whole team was an NFL All-Pro team. Let me see. Ken Dorsey, he shouldn't even have been in the NFL, but he got in there because he was on a college all-star team. And then you can go into Matt Leinart and Tim Tebow and people that were overdrafted. And why were they overdrafted? Oh, that's right. They were on teams with NFL all-star teams as well. So, that bothers me. I'm sorry to rant about it. I can't help it
No.
sometimes. Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun to bring up topics that get a response. And I saw Jake Fromm to Buffalo, and I thought it was interesting because it is windy as hell there. It's cold as hell there. It's wet there a lot, and it takes a really big, powerful thrower. I mean, it certainly helps to have those qualities. Look at Josh Allen, and he's such a different type of quarterback in terms of strengths than Josh Allen. It's a big difference when you line them up next to each other.
It is. It's a big difference. I'll say this. I think it's a good thought by the Buffalo Bills. I think it makes sense for them, for Jake Fromm and everything. I like the pick of the Bills taking Jake Fromm there. What was it, the end of the 5th round? I do.
It was in the 5th, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it makes sense. I'm more ranting on that, the round 2 and 3, round 4 and 5. I mean, it was 40 minutes on the telecast every day, 50 minutes. I walked out of the room. I'm walking back in. Whoa, we're still talking about Jake Fromm. It's a commercial break. Hey, Jake Fromm's still on the board. That frustrated me, but it does make sense for Buffalo. Matt Barkley, he's the backup. You don't know. He might only be there for one more year. He probably will get replaced by a Jake Fromm, who they'll have on a very manageable rookie contract. And, Fromm is experienced and has played. So from that standpoint, he does make sense as a backup quarterback.
Bills made a nice move in round 3, I thought, to go running back with Zach Moss. If you want to hit on that, we can. But this is how we open it up for running backs. Only 1 in the first round to the Chiefs. I know you love that pick. 5 win in round 2. Who's at the top of your list for the whole draft?
Well, I do like the Zach Moss pick. I do. But my favorite one is Jonathan Taylor to the Indianapolis Colts. I look at that. And then, again, this is another topic that bothers me because I hear a lot of people go, well, Marlon Mack ran for 1,000 yards last year. And Devin Singletary for the Buffalo Bills, rushed for 700 yards and looked good. Again, it's not about what the number says at the bottom line. It's about what was there to be had. And I saw so many runs last year with Marlon Mack where that was a 15-yard gain, but the top 10 running backs in football would have got 30 yards. So we can't always just go, oh, look at the yards, 1,000 yards. He's a starter. We don't need that. Jonathan Taylor's special. He's 230 pounds. He'll be one of the fastest running backs in football from get-go. If he sees a crack or a hole behind the blue wall of the Indianapolis Colts offensive line, I just think that's a great combination. They're creative in the run game, and I think that has a chance to be explosive this year.
I'm going to read 3 other big names at running back that went in round 2, and you tell me which one you like the most. DeAndre Swift, early in the 2nd to the Lions. Cam Akers, round 2 to the Rams. J.K. Dobbins, also 2nd round to the Ravens.
Ooh, I'm not crazy about DeAndre Swift to Detroit.
Right.
First off, they have Kerryon Johnson, who's like the same guy in a lot of ways as DeAndre Swift, except I just want to go, he's a better running back. So I didn't know there was a desperate need at the position there. All right, so I don't love the pick. I like DeAndre Swift. I love the J.K. Dobbins to the Baltimore Ravens. Like, great Scots Batman. Holy hell. I mean, you think about that big old line, and we're worried about Lamar Jackson on the edge, and J.K. Dobbins is a home run hitter. I mean, he's another one. If he sees a hole or a seam, it's going to be to the house. I mean, he's 70, 80-yard touchdowns. He's capable of that. So I love that. I like the Cam Akers pick, certainly. I like your Zach Moss thought, too. But I think my 2 favorite were Jonathan Taylor and J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, the Ravens getting Patrick Queen, the LSU linebacker, in round 1, and J.K. Dobbins in round 2. It's a tease for what might be coming up in top 5 favorite teams overall drafts. I have a feeling the Ravens just might show up on that list. Tight end, Chris, not a lot of action. It started in round 2, the Bears going Cole Kmet, a guy we know very well out of Notre Dame. Who comes to mind there?
Yeah, well, I do love Cole Kmet. You know that. I mean, we've talked about him a lot over the last 6 weeks. We did a good video breakdown. I think you and I are in agreement that he's got a chance to be a special player. I think my favorite one, though, well, just because of the combination of the team, and you've heard me talk about this player, is the little Devin Asiasi from UCLA. I think you could make the argument he's every bit as talented, or not, if not more talented than Cole Kmet. Now, there's some off the field things that I don't really know what it is. I know he transferred from Michigan and went to UCLA, and I don't know. There might be a few other things I'm not aware of. But either way, to go to a team who knows how to use the tight end position better than anybody we've ever seen in New England, and it was a desperate need for their football team, and they have a pocket passing young quarterback where it's very nice to have that big target over the middle of the field. That was my favorite tight end pick of this draft.
And the Patriots did it again. They took another tight end later in the draft. So they went there twice. Bill's got something in mind. The Saints taking Troutman out of Dayton. I kind of like that pick. I like them picking up Emmanuel Sanders, getting a talented tight end in the mid rounds. And as we talked about, helping them out with the protection up the middle. So they had Drew in mind there, and I like what they did.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think, the great thing about what you're saying there to the Saints, Paul, and I think you make great points, it's they got Drew in mind, and then, oh, wait, when Drew's not there, these are great advantages to give a new young quarterback who comes in, whether that be Taysom Hill or whatever, to go, we can rely on the run game, we can rely on our tight end sets, and ease a quarterback into the way of the NFL that way too. So I think that's another positive for them.